Hey there guys, it's currently a very cold day here in Somerset and I've just got back from a few days in London. I was there especially for a protest outside the Russian embassy against the anti-LGBT purges that are currently taking place in a region of the country called Chechnya. Now, if you don't know anything about that, then don't worry because I'm going to make a full video explaining the situation, but just for now, here's the basics. So Chechnya is an autonomous region in the south of Russia and it's ruled over by a guy called Ramzan Kadyrov. Kadyrov is an Islamic dictator with a penchant for violent crime who was described by one of his former military commanders as a modern-day medieval tyrant. Now, back in 2014, reports started coming out of the region that gay men were being rounded up and arrested by the authorities. It turned out that approximately 100 members of the LGBT community had been put into concentration camps and were being tortured, humiliated, and often only released if their families said they'd kill them in honour killings. Queer people across the world were shocked. There was a big international outcry, and eventually Moscow intervened. It sent out investigators, and it seemed to clear up the situation until earlier this year. In January 2019, the Russian LGBT network reported that 40 people had been arrested and 2 people had been killed in a whole new wave of purges in Chechnya. It's a terrible humanitarian crisis that needs action right now. So a guy called Dan Glass of Queer Tours of London brought together a whole bunch of different activists, including myself, to have this protest outside of the Russian embassy on Holocaust Memorial Day. So when I arrived, I managed to catch a few words with Dan before everything kicked off. What outcome are you looking for from doing a protest like that? Because it's a very difficult situation.
I guess doing any solidarity action, you need to check with the people who you're trying to stand in solidarity with how it can be most effective. And then I emailed the Russian LGBT network with like, what should our demands be? Should we be doing this? Is it going to cause trouble? Or is it a good thing? And she was like, honestly, anything, any international solidarity actions which can raise the profile, which can, try and hold the international human rights bodies accountable for the remit they should be doing in bringing justice and support to the queer people affected by the genocidal regime going on there. And she was just saying, any solidarity protest which can raise the
As you can see, the weather wasn't quite in our favour, but around 200 to 300 people turned out to show their solidarity for the cause. Then had a whole round of speeches, and in particular 2 stood out to me. The first was a message given on behalf of the Russian LGBT network by Shannon Powers of Gay Star News.
So in 2017, the world learned about what could happen in our industrial age. People are caught, tortured and killed solely because of their sexual orientation. And where? In one of the most civilized countries in the world, in Russia. Russia is denying these crimes. It's closing its eyes to them and trying to shut the mouths of those who cannot be silent, so they become complicit in these crimes. They say silence is gold, but not in this case. Silence is the instrument of murder, which is inhuman. To see silence is what gives authorities the power to commit these horrendous atrocities. We should speak out and keep speaking until the situation is fixed.
And the second was this sentiment given by Tatchell, which I do think really nicely summarises why it was important to have this action on Holocaust Memorial Day.
It is worth remembering, no tyranny lasts forever. Every tyranny has its fall. The Nazi regime promised a 1,000-year reich. It lasted all of 12 years. We hope, and we will fight in solidarity to ensure that the tyranny in Chechnya is ended as soon as possible. And it will end. One day, Chechen people, LGBT race, will be free. Thank you.
And then it came to my speech, and of course the microphone broke just before I went up there.
I got the short straw because I'm the one who has to shout, so as someone who grew up as a queer teenager in an Eastern European family, I grew up haunted. I grew up here in the UK, but stories from my motherland came to this country and they terrified me. Stories of teenagers like myself, hunted in their own neighbourhoods. Stories of queer and trans individuals lynched in broad daylight in the streets. Stories of policemen laughing in the faces of victims of hatred. Today I'm stronger than I was then. But when I hear the stories that come out of Chechnya today, the things I grew up with pale in comparison to those. And I think about the young people across the world, queer Chechens, queer Russians, queer Muslims, who live in fear and feel that they learn their place from the atrocities that are happening out in Chechnya. But it's not just young vulnerable people who are listening. The Russian LGBT network has reported that on VKontakte, people are sharing messages saying that this is a green flag for people to go out and hunt LGBT people across Russia. As long as what's happening in Chechnya continues, that violence will bleed out of Chechnya in the rest of Russia and the rest of the world. To finish, I would like to give a lesson to Mr. Putin and Mr. Kadyrov. He may not know, but our movement was started when those in power underestimated us. With every injustice, our voices grow louder. We want freedom for queer Chechens, and we want it now. Thank you very much.
And then, as a final fuck you to Russian homophobia, Pride in London lent us their gigantic pride flag to wrap the entire Russian embassy in a giant rainbow. It was a great protest, and I want to say a huge thank you to Dan Glass and Steve Taylor for making it possible. If you weren't there, there are still so many things you can do to help the cause in Chechnya. Number one, you can donate your money to the Russian LGBT network. They've been doing an incredible job of getting people out of the region and into safety, so I'm going to put a link below where you can give your money to help them. Number two, you can sign a petition. It might sound small, but as we've seen with the last wave of purges, international pressure did do something and it did make a change, so you can give your support, and again, I'll put a link below so you can sign a petition. And thirdly, you may or may not know that the Russian... I don't know what to do now.
Take a handful of batteries.
We'll rub them together.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Battery Rubbing with Nick. And thirdly, you can write to your Member of Parliament. There are going to be refugees from this situation and they need somewhere to go. You may or may not know, but the British government actually statistically rejects 80 to 90% of all LGBT asylum claims, and that is horrendous. Write to your elected representative and make sure that our doors are open to those who need our help. Okay, so that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. As I said, I'm going to make a video in the next few weeks describing a little bit more about what's happening in Chechnya, so make sure you're subscribed. But for now, thank you again, and I'll see you around.